Secular day and age, we've become very devoid of understanding the spiritual reality that we live in. And that is why you find people trying to only access biological answers to things that may not always be entirely biological. And I'm not saying there's no component of that is biological. I'm sure there is. The scholars, they have this idea where they speak about junun. There are individuals who are completely out of their minds. And رُفِعَتِ الْأَقْلَامِ, the pens are lifted from those individuals. But that's not the case with a lot of people who are suffering this today. Many of them hold jobs, many of them have families. In fact, I have distant family relatives. One of them, she was suffering from depression. And I started, we started a conversation with one another, and she mentioned something very interesting. She said that when, I felt this and I was prescribed medication, I had a bit of anxiety about taking it, I had a bit of shame about taking it, and I mentioned it to a couple of close friends of mine, and wallahi, I found out they were already taking that medicine to begin with. And then we started, I became part of that circle, and I found out that so many of my friends in our circles, they're already on these medications. And this is a Muslim family, from a Muslim environment, practicing in our own cities, here in Texas. This is not beyond. I know many of us that are listening to me, perhaps, again, this is in my own family, I'm sure this is in many of our families as well. And subhanAllah, sometimes, again, we can't ignore the the pharmaceutical industry and the impact that it has within mental health today. Putting people, out of a fear of liability on this drug and that drug. And then when you look at the effects of the SSRI compounds, what it has on an individual, it's almost impossible for them to get back off of it once they're very heavily dependent upon it. This is a major problem that we're struggling with. All because why? We have bought into this secular belief, this materialistic belief that spirituality has no role to play with regards to our mental and our emotional health. This is a big fitna that we're struggling with. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, He gives us the answer to that. He says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُم بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Those who believe, their hearts find rest in the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So first and foremost, our hearts, our minds will find rest when we are fulfilling the purpose for which we were created, which is to worship Allah Azza wa Jalla. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Only when we worship Allah Azza wa Jalla and we remember Allah Azza wa Jalla will we be fulfilling our very purpose of creation. And when we find that fulfillment, then we have itminan. And by itminan, we mean contentment, we don't mean happiness. Some people will come and they'll be like, I prayed Salah once, I didn't feel happy. Salah, didn't work for me, sorry man. I did this once, No, some of the Salaf, what did they say? I prayed Salah 20 years without delay, once, until I felt the sweetness of the prayer. 20 years. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ. But we want to rush it. I'm going to end just with this. The Quran is our companion. The Quran is a shifa for everything. Every single thing, the Quran is a shifa. It's a healing. Whatever it might be. Even it lifts us emotionally, it makes us feel good, it makes us remember Allah, and then even the physical problems that we have become easier to deal with, and your body feels better, it's able to fight off a lot of these physical problems. So never ever abandon the Quran. The Quran is our companion, it will help us through every single thing. If you are in kufr and you are lost, you go to the Quran, it helps guide you, you find enlightenment. If you are committing ma'asi, the Quran reminds you of the punishments of that, and you leave these sins and you feel good. If you are doing good and you want more, the Quran encourages you and reminds you of Jannah, so you get more of that in every single state that we find ourselves in. Quran is there for us in order to lift us and make us feel better. Certainly only in the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jalla do the hearts find rest. And I'm not saying I want to end as a disclaimer.